Gentlemen, ladies, what if Superman had decided to fly down, rip off the roof of the White House, grab the president right out of the Oval Office? Who would have stopped him?
I want to build a team of some very bad people who I think can do some good.
You don't own me.
Y'all jokers must be crazy.
I'm not just one of your many toys.
What?
Don't tell me what to do.
This is the deal. You disobey me, you die. Try to escape, you die.
You got a boyfriend?
You irritate or vex me,
I'm known to be quite vexing. I'm just forewarning you.
you die.
You don't own me.
If they get caught, we throw them under the bus.
Don't tie me down, 'cause I never stay.
What a ride!
Let's play.
Come on, got some better to do?
Light it up!
I love this guy.
Not good. Don't forget, we're the bad guys.
Are you sweet-talking me? All of that chit-chat's gonna get you hurt.
Man in the back is ready to crack as he raises his hands to the sky. And the girl in the corner is everyone's fun. She can kill you with a wink of her eye.
Bye-bye. What you gonna do? You wanna see something? Yo, y'all wanna see something? Yes, I wanna see something. I was just trying to get you there. No hard feelings, right? We good.
What you having?
Beer.
Whiskey.
What am I, 12?
How about you, hot stuff?
Water.
That's a good idea, honey.
Oh, did we have a... Oh, no, now I'm left. There we go. Now we got it. We got it. We got it. Jai, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. Hey guys, how's it going?
Absolutely. We had Joel Kinnaman here, I think yesterday or the day before, and when I did this beginning, how many people are excited to see Suicide Squad, guys? How many people? People are really excited to see this movie, man. Congratulations.
Thank you. We're excited to have everyone see it.
How did you get involved with this film? How did David Ayer choose you? Did you have a bond with director David Ayer?
No, I wouldn't say we had a bond. I mean, I met David when he was casting Fury a few years ago, and anyway, that didn't work out. But I always admired his filmmaking, and yeah, he just we had a Skype conversation one day. Funnily enough, I was actually on a car trip with Shia LaBeouf. We were driving to New Orleans from Los Angeles, getting ready for a film that we did together, and talking about Fury and the experience of that.
Oh, Man Down, right?
That's what we were going to do, yeah, exactly. And Shia was saying that David's next thing was this comic book thing called Suicide Squad. And I was like, yeah, right, kind of puzzling. And we ended up having this conversation, and I, like, rather foolishly was kind of shit-talking, like, the comic book thing. I was like, you know what, man? I don't think it's going to last. Like, I think we've seen, like, the best of the comic book movies. You know, it'll die off. You know, people are going to get bored of this. I'm like, I wouldn't do one, you know. 2 weeks later, I get a call from my agent. They're like, David Ayer wants to Skype. And I'm like, okay. I get on, and he's like, yo, Suicide Squad. And I'm like, anything you want. Like, I'm in. And that's what happened, man. So, yeah, I was fortunate enough. He wanted me to play Boomerang, and that's where it all began.
Funnily enough, the first time I ever interviewed David Ayer, which was for Fury, I said to him in the green room, I'm so excited to see a movie that's not a comic book movie. And the person that he was working with was like, he's writing a comic book movie right now. He's in the middle of writing a comic book.
What's wrong with comic books?
And that ended up being Suicide Squad, which is unlike any other comic book movie ever made. Did you know when you were getting into it that it was going to be as sort of wild and crazy as it is?
No, not at all. Not at all. You know, I could only sort of gather the information that was available to me based on the material out there. And what seemed obvious was that it was a kind of a Dirty Dozen deal in the comic book realm. This assembly of characters who kind of, there were different incarnations of that group, obviously over the decades of them being written, and some included members consistently and others didn't, and sort of, anyway, it was this kind of hodgepodge of villains. And it sounded really dope. And I mean, by that point, the decision was made anyway. It was all about working with David. Most of us signed on without a script, but that didn't seem to matter. And it just kind of got better from there because, we entered that world with complete trust, and, he delivered. It was.
And I see that you have your squad tattoo on your forearm there, on your wrist.
I have my squad tattoo.
Who gave you yours?
A girl called Sophia who worked on the movie. She's Margot Robbie's kind of other half. Yeah. But
It was her and Margot that were mainly giving the tattoos, I'm told, right? Is that true?
They've been known to dish out a tattoo from time to time. Yeah.
Kinnaman showed us his. He said that he was the first one to get them, and he got one that was essentially across his bicep, not knowing everybody else was going to get a small.
Yeah. Will was responsible for Joel's as well.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
What made you guys all get these tattoos?
Stupidity.
But I mean, at the same time, you wouldn't do that on another movie. It seems like David Ayer is really good at sort of making his actors create a bond with each other.
Yeah, though I mean, we convinced him to get one, which was pretty remarkable because look, it's one of those like dumb kind of sentimental like group love things that gets tossed around. That's usually is a bad idea. But this felt right, It was like, let's do it. And it was a bit sickly. It was this kind of, this kind of brotherly, sisterly, like, love in on this job. We all grew really fond of each other really quick. And we shared a lot through the process. It takes a long time to make a movie this big. And you kind of go through it, when you're in the trenches with your crew that long. It kind of goes one or two ways. And fortunately with this, we forged real, lasting, alliances, I think.
And you guys were in training for a while before actually shooting the movie, right? Because there's some action sequences that are mostly hand-to-hand combat. I mean, there's some good special effects sequences, of course, but there's just a lot of hand-to-hand combat stuff that all of you look like you're doing.
It was, we weren't as well. There's always amazing stunt teams supporting the cast on a job of any size, really. But it was expected that we would have martial arts training from, as much like up to like 3 months out from production. Some of us were training with the Sensei Richard Mosquito out of LA. Some of us earned our yellow belt. Some have gone on to earn their orange.
What have you earned?
I'm on my yellow still. But
are you a good martial artist, or did you find that you didn't really have a knack for it?
Martial artist, but there's no way. But listen, it was great to get that foundation in there, and I've done a bit of combat stuff with other films, and it was cool to have that sort of discipline, not forced upon us, but suggested that it was something we stuck with, and I think there was a test in there a little bit from David. I mean, in the end, it didn't necessarily mean that it was pertinent to the action we were doing. It wasn't about that, It was sort of, we then went on to have fight choreography training with the stunt team and those guys. But this was more of about like who's kind of who's going to dive in and approach something that might seem a little indirectly beneficial. But
it was about commitment. It was about knowing who's committed to the movie and
exactly.
who on set is going to
and not
get
everyone
tattoo.
continued with it, and that's fine too. Like some things do. You got a lot on your plate when you're getting ready for a movie like this, and sometimes it is about economy with your preparation. And but it was cool, man. I mean, that was just one element in a big mashup of ideas that David was kind of tossing around and things that were expected of us, and it was awesome. It was awesome to go through a really long prep like that, because by the time it comes to shoot, you're chomping at the bit to get going, and everything has sort of arrived at a place where it feels right to do so. There's nothing worse than getting on a movie set and feeling like you've got to play catch up while you're shooting, or like in week 3, you finally figure out who the fuck your character is, and it's like, cool. Well, that it really, and it happens, because you're not often like afforded lengthy rehearsal time, and I think they were, you know, they did the right thing by trusting David and his approach. And, you know, it's huge property. There's obviously a massive investment in this and in the future of it. And
But I
you've
would
got to get it
also-
right.
I would also say, unlike many other superhero movies that come out in a year or have come out in a while, this property, maybe only kind of like the Avengers, is not just dependent on special effects or action sequences, but is mainly dependent on the chemistry between the people at the center of the movie. So that rehearsal time, that sort of choreography practice, that martial art time must have really helped bond you guys. And sort of, it definitely, that's my favorite part of the movie when I saw it, was the chemistry between everybody on set. It looks like you guys are having a good time.
I think it's designed to test you. You know, there's no guarantee that everyone walks out of that process liking each other. And I think David would have been just as interested in us walking away from that process hating each other. You know, it's not necessarily about, you know, there's no exact science there, and I don't think he is really playing like puppet master in that sense. It's just about, you know, seeing what lengths people are willing to go to, and experimenting with that and seeing what happens. And I think through committing to it and trusting in one another, you know, some sort of chemical reaction is bound to occur.
Now, it's been widely reported that Jared Leto was willing to go to great lengths for his performance as Joker, whereas he was sending you guys filthy gifts. Joel Kinnaman said that he was getting used condoms and dildos. What were you getting?
Just more used condoms and dildos. There was a lot of used condoms and dildos floating around. I don't know how used those condoms were, but they certainly appeared to be. Listen, yeah, he kicked things off with this gift to Margot, kind of from the Joker to Harley's character, and it was a bunch of black roses and this letter that said, you know, in honor of our relationship or celebrating our anniversary or something. And she opened this box and there was a live black rat. And then that
His
kind
poor
of
assistant.
well, it was timed so well, right? Because you know, Jim Parrick, who plays can I say these things? Anyway, whatever. I'm not sure what's a giveaway these days or not.
It's been talked about.
Right. So anyway, he's one of his you know, he works with him, and so anyway, Jim comes in and like delivers the shit, and it was cool because we'd been separated sort of up until this point, not by like a wall, but you know, he was kind of doing his work over there, and we were kind of rehearsing in here, and it was getting a little bit intriguing. It was kind of like, all right, what's up with all the exclusivity, man? And I was one who kind of got, you know, a little bit like, you know, bent out of shape a bit. I was like, well, fuck, why are we in here, like, you know, pouring our hearts out to each other and doing this and that and like getting real and like, you know, and that was a way, I think, of him staying in touch with us and saying, look, there's no disrespect or elitism or anything like that. It's just that, you know, this is my process and I got to do this for this character. And it was a way of saying, like, I'm still here. I'm part of the squad. You know.
Need any used condoms?
If you
I'm
need
your
any used
guy.
condoms or dildos, I got a truckload back here.
Now, is it true that you and Joel Kinnaman sort of took on Parashat? Was it Mr. Frost? Or, sorry, his name. Who was delivering?
Parix.
He brought a pig or something.
He brought a pig. Yeah. So that was the next gift that came. It was a dead pig.
And what happened after the dead man?
It was full of bullets too. There was like one for each of us. It was so loose, bro. So he's got this pig and the bullets, and I think by this point, it just was like one of those infectious kind of things, and we all kind of took the bait, and we ended up, I think we'd like strapped the pig to Jim and shoved an apple in his mouth, and then like wrote messages on him and sent him back to the Joker.
How did Jim take that?
He was cool. He was a sport, you know. It was a team that was like, wow. And you could tell, like, Jim's a big dude, you know. He's not to be messed with either. But he was like, all right, I'll let you do it. I see why you need to do this. I don't like it.
Have you ever had an experience on a movie like this before?
No, not really. No, not at all. I couldn't compare anything I've done to this.
Were you expecting that at all when you signed on? Had you heard about working with David? Because I know Shia was in Fury,
Yeah.
and some of the stories of Fury were that the the main actors were sort of made to wrestle and sort of fist
Right.
fight at the beginning of every day to get them ready for the shoot.
Totally. And I mean, this was part of that conversation that I was having with him on that road trip, was like feeding off this, wow, what the fuck, you guys are like living in the tank and you're sparring and like boxing each other, and you kind of like, you don't hear about these things too much anymore. They're kind of the you know, stories of legend. And it sounded really exciting. But, you know, that then becomes like totally terrifying as a concept when you're getting involved. And David has a wonderful way of kind of making you feel, you know, before you get to a place where you kind of know and trust each other too much, he doesn't go out of his way to make you feel comfortable. So it's kind of good though, you know, because it leaves you questioning, and it forces you to think, and it forces you to want to work harder and take things on and stretch outside yourself, because there is no level of comfort or complacency. And it's like he's expressed faith in you by hiring you for the gig, but it's like you feel replaceable at any time, you know what I mean?
So it's that kind of gig.
It kind of is, but you know, you don't get that too much anymore. You know, actors can be kind of coddled a little, and it was cool to do something like this, and especially with the likes of, you know, Will, for instance, who's, you know, he's Will fucking Smith, but he's in the rehearsal room with us, you know, like not getting away with anything that anyone else isn't, and it's like we're all there, and he's getting up and he's training and doing the martial arts shit, and he's got physical expectations, and you know, it's like there's no one could snooze through this thing.
Did you have a moment when you met Will Smith? Because there are some celebrities, actors who have been a sort of a part of our lives pop culturally for so long, who I feel like whether they know it or not or want it or not, there's a weird aura around them when you meet them for the first time. Did you have a little bit of that when you're like, this is Will Smith? We're like, oh, hi.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess maybe it's a funny thing because there's always a little bit of that moment, you know, when like you just kind of with someone whose work you really admire, and you know, they're so recognizable that it does seem kind of surreal. But I think you know, I haven't been starstruck in a long time, but that's usually by way of someone in another profession or you know, career these days, because you do mix about with, you know, your kind of you know, your peers who are, you know, have become, you know, or your heroes have become your peers. Anyway, so yeah, look, I mean, Will's an amazing guy, and I mean, that was probably the more special thing. It wasn't the first encounter, but getting to know the dude and just realizing how generous he is with his time and spirit, you know.
I'm noticing other tattoos outside of the squad one. Are those also from Margot's assistant as well?
Fuck no, God. No, stop there. I do have one, actually. I have one over here. It's kind of hard to explain, but I lost a bet to Margot over a rugby league game that was being played in Australia. Two teams. It's an age-old rivalry. I support one. She supports the other. I had to get the initials of the state where she's from in a small tattoo that's I'm not too proud of. But anyway, don't make dumb bets, kids.
So talk about Boomerang, your character. Tell me about Boomerang.
Boomerang is a dirtbag.
He's great. He's a wild card of the bunch, I think. I mean, Margot's also the wild card, but there's like an emotional stake that she has that's going on with another character.
Right.
You're there just throwing out one-liners and jokes and
and it was one of those roles where on the page the task was upon me to sort of figure out how I could elevate, you know, what might have otherwise seemed like sort of comic relief or whatever. And you know, when I was learning what this project was going to be about and David's process and all that, you know, I admit there was some stuff early on where I was like, oh shit, man, like is that like, am I just the kind of class clown? Like, but there's a way to thread that in and make you care about the character at the same time. And I think he really just asked me to trust him on that and kind of go with it. And I don't really know what it was that happened between that and getting to where we did, but it was just that process. And I think learning to respect it a little more and get comfortable with it, and it became one of these, you know, real gifts, man. Like there's obvious reasons, you know, that it's kind of special to be playing an Aussie in a big mainstream comic book kind of, you know, franchise launch and
guy who's like in many ways sort of defined by his Aussie-ness.
100%, yeah. And I mean, that too was worrying. I mean, the fact that it's Captain Boomerang, I mean, that's
Like you're gonna go back. Have you gone?
So
back?
like on the nose, you know.
This is gonna come out, and you're gonna go back home, and people are like, "What's up, Captain Boomerang?"
Exactly.
Like,
Well, this is a funny thing. Like, you know, not a lot of people had heard of this property, and when I was telling mates of mine, like, oh, I'm doing a superhero film, like, who are you playing? And I'm like,
Captain Boomerang.
Captain Boomerang. It's like, what, bro? But that's all. You know what? That is the character, and it's like in the '60s comics when he looks like an airline stewardess. That's one thing, but we managed to turn that kind of camp, weird, racist character into something that's, you know, kind of charming in his own way.
I think it's kind of cool to see you playing the comic relief, if you will. I mean, the character's more than that, but I've never seen you get to play the class clown and really test out your sort of.
It's a lot of
comedy
fun,
chops.
man.
Yeah, and you've always been like a really fun guy to interview and pretty funny on the off the cuff. Like it must have been pretty great for you to be to play that kind of.
It was. It was good to like. I mean, look, I try not to take myself too seriously in general, but it was. That's the thing. I mean, I didn't realize what a gift that was going to be, and it's funny because that's sort of become, you know, maybe something that's even more of a comfort zone than any other space I've been playing in prior. You know, and it's kind of opened up. You know, a new realization for me with what I get out of the work that I'm taking on, and that was cool.
What do you mean by that? What you?
I
get
just
out of the
mean
work?
like for instance, a couple years ago, I might have had a sort of more naive outlook that like comedy, for instance, like that was like a real choice. Like to be funny, you've got to be like a funny person to do comedy because there's pressure to like make people laugh. And it's interesting because like taking this on, I actually I was attracted to a character that David Ayer described to me that didn't involve the words like class clown or comic relief. Like, you know, the role he sold me on was, you know, a guy who had been sort of broken by his past, was on his own. He wanted me to think about someone who, you know, was ex-special forces in Australia, had then, you know, probably been like ruined by the system and turned to like burglary and kind of like, you know, weapons running for, you know, to make a crust and like a racket. And I'm kind of like, all right, shit, man. Yeah, this is like some dope David Ayer shit. I'm like, this is dramatic as fuck, right? And I read it and I'm like cracking beers in the middle of fights and like there's pink unicorns and I'm like, wait, where's my like Oscar on like which page, you know? And I think that's just it, you know. It's like I needed to realize that I can't judge it for that, and I didn't realize what I was going to get out of it. And I mean, I had a ball with this character, man. I hope I don't get killed off because I want to play him for a few more movies.
Well, I mean, it's a good setup for possibly his own movie. I mean, that's some of the intention of these movies, right? Is to give these characters kind of their own movies to go off on.
I guess so. You know, it's hard to sort of pull apart the strategy of, you know, of DC and what they want to do. But yeah, I think that'd be cool, and it's cool. It's cool to kind of understand that there's a possibility to do that, and you know.
Let's open it up to the audience for questions. Who has a question? Right there.
Hi.
Howdy.
How's it going? Just want to say, big fan. You're a great actor.
Oh, thanks, man.
In terms of bringing the character to life, how much did you have to rely on comic book sources, and how much originality were you allowed to bring into this character?
I kind of didn't rely too much on the comic book stuff, and this has been something that in a different way I've dealt with other roles too, you know, when there's been source material, whether it be a book or you know, previous films. And I find for me it's like it's not that helpful to bind myself up. You know, my choice as an actor usually kind of run on instinct, and I'm, you know, I have theater training, and I think that is in there as some part of the muscle, but you know, I just kind of approach it from what kind of feels right, and then, you know, workshopping that within myself, and I think the comic book stuff really like laid a foundation, but there were also elements of the character that weren't going to translate when we're talking about a film in 2016 from the guy on the page. So it's a bit of an amalgamation of that, but you know, I used a bit of that to get a sense of him, and then it was about interpreting it and applying it to the script that we had, and then sort of also lending my own, you know, voice to it. I mean, you know, you ask about how much of that you know, we were allowed to sort of pour in ourselves, and I mean, I think I was lucky in this sense because, you know, with no kind of arrogance surrounding it, I'm more of a scholar on the art of being Australian than you know David is, and I mean, you know, he admitted he was kind of doing his best to write a role for a character that he felt, but a lot of that was drawn from, you know, either experiences with guys through, you know, his naval years or working with people in like the UK and kind of that like London thing, and he created a voice that was sort of there, but I was able to kind of go in and be like, all right, man, well, you know, I might say this, or you know, maybe we do that, or there's room for a joke here that kind of works based on a cultural thing. So it was cool to be able to sort of collaborate in a sense on that level.
Yeah, I had heard that David, even on set with a movie like this, would notice things that actors were doing and then go off and sort of write another scene for people to do.
He's a lot like that, you know. We had this crazy little part of the process early on where he, you know, we were having these sessions with, you know, someone that he brings in to help on his films, and you know, who's done a lot of policing work, right? And you know, we would get to this point where you were kind of letting go of like all this personal shit to this guy and talking about stuff because you'd gained this, you know, crazy amount of trust in a small period of time. And somehow there was an understanding that was all staying in the room and it was going to help you like develop certain things. And, you know, he had his eye on the script as well. It was all geared around character and what that could do and how, you know, it's an amazing little process. Little do we know that like we're totally being like betrayed, and at a certain point in the process, it was totally within David's capabilities to come and whisper something in your ear that had come from those sessions that he'd never heard, that pertained to like an element of the performance he was trying to dig out of you in that moment. And it's like part of you's like, you motherfucker. But you get off on it at the same time, and it's like you trust him so much by that point that it's like you wouldn't have it any other way, you know?
Next question, right here.
Hi. So what kind of like research did you really have to do though to get to that part to bring out that character, Captain Boomerang? Like, was there a lot? I know you read and stuff like that, but like, was there a certain thing you pulled off of directly to make this character more?
I think just influences, you know. David, one of the first things he told, you know, we had a phone call shortly after I was on board, and I wanted to know like what I could do, like where do we start, and he was like, I want you to get in touch with your inner shitbag. And I was like, all right. And I was like, the thing is, like, that's my inner shitbag. Like, I'm pretty in touch with it, you know. It's right there. I know exactly where he is. And he was like, get in some trouble, you know, like hang out with barflies, like walk your street, like think about which house you might break into. How would you do it? What would you take? You know, and he didn't want me to like go and like execute these things, but it was about getting in that mind frame and you know, yeah, you kind of spend time in that space. And, you know, I look through my years growing up, I was always, you know, fairly well behaved, but I knocked about with some unsavory characters from time to time. And, you know, it was about kind of starting with a cliche, I think, that Boomerang could have been and a stereotype. And I really wanted to be careful with that because, like we kind of joked about before, I didn't want this character to be someone that I was embarrassed about back home, you know? And it's like when you know, if you're going to, like, if it's going to be that kind of shamelessly, like, patriotic and Australian, I needed to, like, thread that in a way that wasn't kind of icky and eggy to Aussies, you know? So, yeah, it was a bit of an uphill battle with a boomerang as my weapon of choice. But yeah, that's where we went from.
Next question.
How's it going, Jai?
Hey, man.
My name is Debbie. My question is, when you watch the movies that you're in, do you get to enjoy them as like a whole movie, or do you see them as collections of the memories of you shooting the scenes?
A bit of both, man. That's a great question. Yeah, I think a part of the wonderful thing about it is sort of reliving those memories and seeing what happened. And of course, with that comes like judgment. You know, some actors have a really tough time watching their work. I don't particularly love it, but I'm very interested to watch my work in that sense. And that usually, you know, I could watch a film of mine maybe like 3 times if it's really good, and that's it. Like, it has to be packed away. And if it's something I don't feel really great about, then maybe just once, and then I'll never see it again. But that's as much about, you know, there's value in like learning from stuff as well. And sometimes, you know, a film gets made, and it comes out a year later, and you've worked on 2 other projects since, you know, with directors who are influential for other reasons, or you've gone through a process that was something that you hadn't touched on before, and you feel like an immense amount of growth. And it can be weird to kind of look back retrospectively at some of your choices creatively, and you know, it is easy to judge that. But the other great part is just seeing how it all comes together. You know, filming a movie is like one element in like a really like massive equation. Like there's the whole pre-production leading up to getting everyone there before cameras roll, which, you know, can easily be a year on a project like this. I mean, you know, the time writing, developing, scouting, you know, none of that just happens like it's like an obvious choice. We shot in Toronto. I mean, that, you know, the decision to do that comes down to the most minute details of figuring out the logistics of doing that. So anyway, my point is that after filming happens as well, then, you know, a whole nother process starts to take place, and that is, you know, threading the thing together and editing and mixing and, you know, building in special effects, and so we don't see that, and it's cool to kind of watch that all come together and recognize the talents of the people that are working on the film that you don't necessarily engage with every day as an actor, and that's what I really love to do. That's kind of why I want to see a finished product, even if it's shit.
I think we have time for one more question right here.
Hi, thank you for coming. I have a 2-part question. The first part is, did you keep any of your boomerangs because they're awesome? And 2, if you could fight any hero in the DC universe, which one would you fight, regardless of whether you would be in the same scene with them or not?
Okay. Well, I may have some souvenirs. I believe a few people probably do, but you know, probably not willing to admit that. Some stuff went missing from the set, like right at the end. Like, yeah, really cool stuff. There's some crew members in Toronto that have like some hardcore memorabilia
got in
up
touch
there.
with their inner shit bag. And
Totally,
stuff,
dude.
Yeah.
Which kind of sucks in a way. Anyway, but I won't get into that. Anyway, the second part. Who would I like to get in a fight with? I don't know. It's a good question. See, the thing is, like, well, like I got to think of like what are my chances with.
just say Ben Affleck and Batman and say that you'll fight him.
I don't want to fight him. He's a big boy.
That's true. That's true.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, because you're small.
Exactly. I reckon for the sake of you know, literary authenticity, I'll take on Ezra as the Flash.
Oh, there you go. And also because he actually is a small guy. You're a bully, Jai.
Hey, man. You got to use what you can.
Jai, congratulations on Suicide Squad, man. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, guys.
Friday,
so much.
August 5th. Friday.
5th.
Go see Suicide Squad, guys. Thank you.